All right, you made it this far. So we just talked about objects, but now let's get into arrays and what's different about them. So with an object, it had a key value pair. So you'd write what it was going to be and then the data that could be stored inside there. With an array, think of it a lot more like it's a bookshelf. It's going to be indexed. So there's a place you can locate it as. With an object, you would use that dot notation. You'd say book.title, and it would give you the title of it. For an array, I'll show you how that guy works. So for an array, we're going to call it my bookshelf. And inside this bookshelf, we're going to use, again, the assignment operator. What we're going to put inside this thing, in this case, this thing is a bookshelf, but it's going to contain an array. For an object, we used these ones, these brackets, the squiggly brackets. For this one, we're using the hard brackets. You use one or the other, it's going to think it's an object or it's going to think it's an array. So make sure you use the right ones. So for an array, we're using the hard brackets. And so we're going to say we've got book one. I'm so original. And then we're going to have newspaper one. And then we're going to have book two. So that's how we're stacking them. We've got a book one, then we've got a newspaper, and then we've got book two in there. And then maybe a video game. That's how we've organized our bookshelf. Really out of order, but it's how our bookshelf is. So the way we did this, and anything can go inside here, but we're going to use strings first. So this array has one item, one piece of text, or a string, then a comma, then another one, comma, then another one, then a comma, then another one, then a comma. And this can go on infinitely. But for now, let's just console log it and see what we've got. So we're going to console.log our bookshelf. Let's see what we've got from that. We run it, we can see all of our items are in there. But how do we index it? Because before we were able to say bookshelf.title. Well, in this case, we actually index it with a number. So at location 1. So let's run that and see what goes down. So we can see newspaper 1, which is kind of weird because we wrote 1, but it gave us the thing in the second spot. Yeah, I know. This is a very unique thing to just the programming world, really, because we start at 0 in the programming world. So this is the 0th spot. We start at the very beginning. So at the very beginning spot is not 1. The very beginning spot is 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. So when I said 1, it wasn't talking about 0, it's talking about 1. So if we change that guy to 0, then we can see that book, book 1 appears. And we can see that this guy over here will not actually be 4. It'll be 0, 1, 2, 3. The last guy in our array will be 3. And a helpful thing that typically you need to know is that with arrays, you can actually index them. So if we use the function off of it, so an array has array methods, array functions, things you can call off of it. This box knows that when you dot notation off of it, that it has certain things you can access. In this case, it's dot length. So if we use dot length off of this guy, you can see it's saying it's got a length of 4. And this is super common to use because what we will say, let's say let length of bookshelf be equal to bookshelf dot length. So we're assigning this in there. And so now if we were to say length of bookshelf and we run that, you're going to see it's a 4. So if I were to say, hey, the bookshelf at it's the length, it's the last spot, right? So if we were to say length of bookshelf, so the way I always read these hard brackets is using the term at. So bookshelf at some location. But this isn't the right location. This is 4. This is 0, 1, 2, 3. We need 3. Well, if you noticed, the length in the last index is always going to be the length minus 1. So if I just write bookshelf minus 1, I'm indexing, I'm saying, hey, in this array, so this bookshelf, they're talking about the same thing. at its length, so the last spot, I know this is a lot, or at the count of things that are in it, which is 4. There's 4 things in it, and at that, instead, because we know we're indexing it at a weird spot, 0, 1, 2, 3, just take 1 off, and it will always get you there. Video game. Perfect. This is super helpful because what if it's really long? What if we still want it after we say comic? We run it, comic shows up. This lets us be dynamic so we can always find the last thing because the first thing is always easy to find. It's 0. However, finding the last thing can be kind of weird. So I wanted to show you how we always find the last thing. And this obviously works for if you said, hey, not the last thing, but the second to last thing. Video game. Perfect. So this is how arrays work. So you just store to any random named variable. You store it using the hard brackets. So these guys right here, and you store things in it with comma separation. Now I'm going to go back just a little bit and let's make this even more unique of a array. We're just going to call it stuff on floor. So it's still there, but for stuff, we're just going to call it stuff. So it's still got that book, but we can also store other things in it. We know about numbers, so we can store numbers inside there. We also know about objects. So if I just make an object here and I say, hey, name is Matt. Oh, name is Matt. Age is 26. We can store that into here. So we can see at 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's actually log that guy and see what goes down. Looks like I might be getting an error. Yep, I put a comma there, but there's not a comma here. So watch this fun. So console.log, and we're going to console log stuff just to make sure it works first. So once we check that it works, we're going to run it. Okay, there's everything in it, and here's this one. So at 0, 1, 2, 3. So stuff at 3. Okay, let's see if this works. So we're getting me. Now, what if I were to keep going? Because this is an object. And remember what I just taught you about objects? Objects can be indexed by the key value pairing. So what if I were to do .name off of all of this stuff? I've already said, okay, that array at the 3rd spot. But now if I want to keep going deeper and get name out of there, we get Matt. How cool is that? So we can store a bunch of stuff, and some of those things that are stored in there are objects that let us store even more stuff. Best part is you can actually store an an array within an array. So this array right here could be, let's just make it a bunch of or food items. So maybe it's like a grocery list. Eggs, tortillas, maybe some salad, because, you should. And then make sure we put that comma after it. So now if we, again, go to our stuff at, this would be index 0, 1, 2. I'm going to get rid of these just so then you can probably see it a little easier. So there's a comma after each one. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is where we want to go to. So let's try that guy. Boom. And then what if we wanted to go even deeper? Because I wanted the eggs off of it. So stuff at 4 at the 0th spot. Because remember, this is an array. This thing now just replaced an array. And an array can be indexed. So we're saying, hey, this big array at the 4th spot. Now that we've got this 4th spot, which is just an array, give me the first thing off of it. Now this might seem crazy, but it works. So now we can get eggs off of it. That was probably a lot to just get into your brain, but it's going to be used a lot. So I'll see you in the next video and we'll go over a bit more.